Welcome back, one and all, as we continue with this whole thing of the news. What do you know? We wake up, more stories demanding analysis and conversation. It's almost like it happens every day. But anyway, I'm John Iadarola, which also happens every day. Not every day, although most of the days of this week will be joined by Yasmin Khan. Yes, how's it going?
It's going very well. I'm happy to be here, John. I have had way too much sugar this morning already, and I feel like I already speak too fast, so I'm going to make a conscious effort to slow down my
Mhm.
speech today.
I don't know if I think of you as speaking especially fast, but
Okay, good.
yes, once you're
That's an
revved
effort.
up on Girl Scout cookies, like maybe that's Ben Shapiro's secret. Maybe that guy just loves the tag-alongs and the do-si-dos,
Yeah.
and that's why he goes at this speed. Maybe that's what
I
it's all
have
about.
I have the thin mints, like just boom, boom, boom. I
I
shouldn't
appreciate
do
the thin
that
mint.
on camera, but
I
yeah.
like it. I do. You know what I do? I'm going to tell everybody about what's going to happen on the show and everything. But before we do that, I always forget to do this, and I need to check because I'm probably more than a day out of date. I'm just going to advance this, just as a reminder that we are moving through this dark period together, one day at a time, and it's going to take a while. But look at that, we're already closer to 900 than we were to 1,000. That's progress. The only progress we'll get for years, but it is happening. And with that said, we have some updates on important stories. The whole answer my email or I'm firing your asshole thing, that's fun. More Republicans going out and doing town halls and then immediately regretting that decision. We've got two for you today. Those are always a lot of fun. And then let's see, a first look into the actual conditions for migrants at Guantanamo Bay. That'll be a laugh riot, obviously. And Mike Johnson maybe having a little bit of trouble delivering for Donald Trump in the House, and I just feel so bad for him. Oh no, if he fails, I'm sure Trump is gonna be super understanding. But anyway, maybe we'll get to have a little bit of fun with that. And to start off the aftermath, for those of you listening on the podcast, definitely go to the YouTube channel. There was a video that was played on the hacked monitors, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And if you didn't think that we were gonna play that video on TDR, are you new to the channel? Of course we're playing that, and we'll have that for you very soon. But with that said, hit the like button, share the stream, send us your comments, your tweets, your super chats. You might earn yourself a Blueprint gift card. And with all that said, yes, are you ready to do this thing?
I'm very ready. I'm extra ready today. Let's do it.
Okay, you're super ready. You're riding on those cookies. So let's do it. Let's jump into it. There is mass confusion over Elon Musk's bizarre Twitter thing of sending an email to literally every one of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of government employees and demand that they give a rundown of how they spent their time. And the reason there's confusion over it is Elon Musk, from moment to moment, doesn't really seem to understand if he was being serious or not. Donald Trump both supports it and also thinks it's utterly irrelevant. And so we're gonna run through all that we know. And at the end, this is the promise I make to you. You're gonna understand this story at least 5% better than you did going in. I can't promise anything more than that, but this is what we've got right now because, chaos and crime, that's what the Trump administration is. So by Monday, just 48 hours after he sent that email, the what did you do last week email, personnel officials proclaimed the request to be voluntary, even as he renewed his demand for them to do it. So if you're a worker, you're like, you have to respond to this, you're gonna be fired. Also, it's optional. Also, psych, you're gonna be fired if you don't answer it. So that's obviously a chaotic situation to be in. So while that was going on, people looked to the ostensible president of the United States. He's off playing golf and stuff. But anyway, Trump was meeting with Emmanuel Macron of France. He said that Elon Musk, that demand that he'd made was genius, and that employees who did not respond would be semi-fired or fired. And so, just to catch you up on the legal proceedings we're gonna be talking about later on, whether or not what Elon Musk did violates federal law, a lot of that seems to ride on what the whole "will consider your resignation" thing is. And he might have been being weird in his language there, because telling hundreds of thousands of people that they'll be fired if they don't respond to an email that was sent over the weekend is probably illegal. And so he was sort of being careful. Trump just said, no, you'll be fired if you don't answer. And so I'm sure the class action lawsuit participants will very much appreciate Donald Trump weighing in this particular case. Unfortunately, if you're trying to understand what's going on, he says you'll be fired if you don't respond. A spokesperson for Trump goes out and says that it's voluntary. I guess you're volunteering to be fired, I suppose. But I can't even be mad at the spokespeople, because they don't know what Donald Trump thinks. Because Donald Trump doesn't know what he thinks. Elon Musk is in a ketamine haze. He doesn't even know what he thinks. It's just utter chaos. And so Elon Musk decides to reiterate it, saying subject to the discretion of the president, they will be given another chance. Failure to respond a second time will result in termination. So that's not what Trump said. Trump said you'll be fired if you don't respond to the first one. But Elon's like, okay, so I guess we need a second one. And now we're dispensing with that whole, we'll consider resignation. No, now you will be terminated. So again, the court case should be pretty smooth from here on out. Then he describes the email request as utterly trivial, saying it's just a test. I just want someone to respond to an email. He says, yet so many failed even that inane test, urged on in some cases by their managers, including by high-profile members of the Donald Trump administration, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and others. He says, have you ever witnessed such incompetence and contempt for how your taxes are being spent? And I have to say no. No, I think this is the most incompetence and contempt for taxpayer dollars that I've seen. This whole thing we're dealing with. And then he says, makes old Twitter look good. Didn't think that was possible. No, I think the vast majority of our country thinks that old Twitter looks pretty good compared to new Twitter, and thinks old government looks pretty good compared to government. Donald Trump's flailing polling numbers would seem to indicate that. And so, okay, you don't know whether you should trust Elon Musk or Donald Trump or his spokespeople, because depending on what time of day it is, they're telling you the exact opposite thing. So the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, which is being headed up by, again, fresh out of college Trump loyalists, they sent out a memo reiterating the request and the deadline, though allowing agency heads to exclude personnel from this expectation at their discretion. So I guess it's, you have to do it, and you'll be fired if you don't. Except that nobody has to do it if they don't like what Elon Musk is doing. Again, look, it is easy for me to point out that all of this is utterly chaotic. The issue is that that is what they want. Like, they don't want things to function, which is perfectly fine if you're a billionaire. If you're a billionaire, things are going good for you. You don't want the government meddling in what you're doing. So if the government is off barely hanging on, then that's a good thing. If you're a regular person, you need the government to function. You need the stability, the order that a working government provides, let alone all the benefits that you deserve based on the taxes you've paid. Then this is utterly terrible. And that has nothing to do with your political party ID. Conservatives need a functioning government as much as Democrats do. Unfortunately, they're no more likely to get it than those Democrats. And just, as before we discuss, to throw one more thing out there, Carolyn Leavitt, press secretary, comes out and says, everyone's working together. It's one unified team at the direction of President Trump. He's a big boy and he's still very much in charge. Any notion of the contrary is completely false. Even though multiple departments said you don't have to comply with this, and the OPM even said if they tell you don't have to comply, you don't. So I don't see how that's one unified team. Yes, I'm sure you've been following this story since the weekend. What do you make of all this? What's your takeaway?
Well, you were right, John, at the top of when you started the story. I am confused, and you did very little to confuse me less. And one thing I can say about confusion is that it is inefficient. And if you're inefficient, that really is the worst thing you can be in the eyes of the Department of Government Efficiency. So it's all very ironic and all very hypocritical, whatever. It is just a waste of time. And that is exactly, as you pointed out, what they want to do. And I think you said it, they despise workers, hundreds of thousands of workers that they are putting in this very stressful situation, the situation of mass uncertainty. Their livelihoods are depending on this, on their jobs. Their families are depending on their jobs, everything, their homes. How are they supposed to react to a situation like this? And then on top of that, they're being told that they're contemptuous toward the new administration and that they're contemptuous towards the spending of tax dollars, et cetera, et cetera. But Elon Musk, we already know he's basically a robot. He must be so excited that AI is going to come in and get rid of all these workers who he can't stand anyway. Not sure what their unemployment plan is going forward, but I'm sure they have some concept of a plan where that is concerned. Also, I don't really know what semi-fired means, but again, John, as he pointed out, I probably don't know what it means because Trump probably didn't know what he meant when he said it. What is semi-fired? I would assume that it means that they're going to be in a reduced role or a different role, something like that, be reassigned somewhere, but it's still a weird word to use, especially for someone who loves firing people. His whole brand was about firing people. He should know more about firing than anybody. Also, As I pointed out, it is so incredibly inefficient. And I think that is what bothers me personally the most about that, about everything that's happening here, right? Like I hate being micromanaged. That's why I like working here. I just get my job done. I try to do it well and I try to do it on time. Most of the time, I think I'm decently successful. But if I'm not for some reason, or if I become incapable of doing my job, then someone who is higher up in the organization than I am is going to let me know and act accordingly. That's how these things are supposed to work. I don't need to prove to anyone that I have a pulse because it is a wasteless. It's a waste of time and it is pointless. It is a pointless
Yeah.
stunt. And it's not going to actually do anything. No one is going to read these emails or going to HR at OPM. No one is going to say, oh, I got an email from John. He's alive and kicking. Check him off the list. That's not what's happening here. It's not similar to when there's like a voting purge, a purge of the voter rolls, right? Which needs
Yeah.
to be done periodically. Dead people or ex-employees or people that move, they're not just regularly receiving paychecks from their old jobs. And I like to think that the idea that Trump's discretion is going to decide whether or not these hundreds of thousands of federal workers will be able to keep their job. Like on one hand, I feel like let him do that, keep him busy with some kind of BS. But on the other hand, there's no way he's going to go through anything related to any of this. And if he did, it would be, again, an incredibly, unfathomably inefficient way for the Department of Government Efficiency to conduct its operations.
Yeah. I mean, look, the name was obviously stupid intentionally, but it's also like it's utterly ironic that this all it does is produce inefficiency. Inefficiency, no savings. You can't call it savings when services that you funded, you won't get now. You still funded it. The money's gone. You just don't get the actual product of it. And then, oh, don't worry, you'll get to see all that money that you paid in go to billionaires, and you'll get to see them, and they'll I don't know, they'll repaint their yacht or whatever. And you won't have food stamps, which you might rely on or whatever, but they'll have a nice new shiny glitter coat of paint on their mega yacht. Maybe they'll even be able to paint the smaller boats that dock inside of their mega yacht. And as you are suffering and starving on the streets, that will be some consolation. And let me just end with one thing, because some dude had like referenced about how they're using AI in all of this. And of course they are. They despise workers. They want to replace you with AI, and they will do that as soon as they can. And so what do you know? Elon Musk is doing that in this. But he does say with the email thing, no LLM needed here, even though they had previously said that they were 100% going to be evaluating the emails with ChatGPT or Grok or whatever. He then says this mess will get sorted out this week. Again, this mess only exists because of him. Things were fine before then. Then he says, lots of people in for a rude awakening and strong dose of reality. They don't get it yet, but they will. There is literally no one in this country, and I'm including Donald Trump, more desperately in need of a rude awakening and a strong dose of reality than Elon Musk. Or maybe the people who, despite seeing all that he's doing, are still paying him a massive amount of money to do other jobs that he's not doing. I will remind you that he's focused on this. This is what he's doing right now. He's so laser focused on it that he doesn't even know when he's walking away without his kid, as we showed you yesterday on the show. But you know what else he's not doing? Anything for the dozen or so companies that he's the CEO of. I checked randomly, and I don't generally follow the stock market all that much. But do you know that just a few months ago, Tesla's stock was $480 a share. It's now $305. I'm not great at math, but let's call that a 50% drop in just a couple of months. Is that the sort of thing where maybe you'd want to have a CEO occasionally show up, occasionally pretend to give a damn about the company, which is tanking before our very eyes? But again, the shareholders don't seem to care. The board doesn't seem to care. Why are the expectations so much lower for the richest man in the world, a man who's the CEO of basically everything, than it is of the hundreds of thousands of government employees who he's demanding account for their time? Here's an idea, Elon Musk. How about you send an email to the board of Tesla explaining what 5 things you did for that company this week? Why don't you earn a little bit of your massive overinflated salary? Now, they're not gonna demand it. It takes someone completely on the outside to actually ask for that. But again, a desperate dose of reality and a rude awakening is long overdue. But that said, let's turn to some of the consequences to this. Now, Pretty much everyone, I think, agrees that Elon Musk demanding that everyone in the government spend hours every week just sending out emails of all the stuff they're doing that nobody's going to read is a massive waste of time. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be more of a waste of time, and people have figured out a way to do that. And so a lot of trolls are obviously flooding the email systems that these government employees need to send these emails to. That's the most expected thing on the internet. And how does a guy like Elon Musk, who tweets every 3.5 minutes, not know, and he's a troll, not know that that's what's gonna happen? And so you see emails like this of people saying, "Dear Elon, here's what I did last week. Got blitzed on ketamine, ignored my children, tweeted 1,782 times, wore weird sunglasses inside, got humiliated by astronauts." Wait, I think that was actually Elon Musk, but it was a good use of a week, I think. Let's see, this one implied that most of the week was spent betting on Pinewood Derby races and then getting in fights at high school basketball games. Again, not necessarily directly relevant to the government, but I think it's an exciting way to use your week. And then, you get into like the cosplaying tentacle porn and stuff like that, but I can only imagine the literally thousands, hundreds, millions of emails that they're gonna get. And if he hasn't already, John Oliver, I'm sure, is gonna be advising people to do this. I think I saw a reference to the Majority Report asking people to do this, which you 100% should. Now, in the end, I guess nobody's gonna be reading them anyway, but anytime the right wingers try to get all of us to either spy on each other, spy on ourselves, we need to throw as many spanners in the works as possible, and I love it. Now that's sort of the trolling consequences. There are more serious consequences, and that is that there's a lawsuit in federal court that's been filed on behalf of unions, businesses, veterans, and conservation organizations saying that his instructions to have them do these emails every week or risk being fired, which he says they will, or at least semi-fired, as Trump says, violated the law. The lawsuit says no OPM rule, regulation, policy, or program has ever in the United States history purported to require all federal workers to submit reports to OPM. And they call it one of the most massive employment frauds in the history of this country. And I just want to be clear about this. When it comes to Doggy, Elon Musk didn't want responsibility for any of this. That's why they pretended for a couple of weeks that he wasn't in charge of it. That's why he was sending his little 16-year-old boy toys out in all these government agencies so that they would take the fall if and when, and it was the law that was violated. But the issue here is that Elon Musk is the one doing this. He's sending the email. He's telling people that they're gonna be fired. And so there should be consequences for this. This should result in Elon Musk being ejected from government, never to return. I think committing one of the most wide-scale OPM criminal violations in American history should have historic consequences. I have basically no faith whatsoever, Yaz, that will actually happen. But imagine if the law was actually respected in America. Maybe someday after a future election that will happen. But what do you think?
What a world that would be, John. How fun would it be for all of us? I can't, it's weird because it almost feels like this strange utopia, like, oh, that would be so nice if only, and that's really just how things are supposed to work. But this whole debacle is very frustrating. I have issues with authority, especially authority that I don't recognize or respect, but this would be incredibly frustrating to be on the workers' side of, especially coming from a billionaire who doesn't really work a whole lot, whose most significant contributions to science and technology and innovation were either bought or stolen from others who actually did all the work and all of the R&D that he now takes credit for. And he also famously overworks his employees and does not respect their time or their well-being. And for him to come now and demand to know exactly how all these workers who are actually working, because there are consequences for them if they don't work, for him to demand to know how they each spent their day as if that's helpful at all, it's very frustrating. People have actual jobs to do. They're trying to do those jobs. They're trying to do so in a lot of cases now with incredible cuts to staff and budget cuts that came directly from either Elon Musk or from the Trump administration in general. So people are already overworked and now they have to deal with Elon Musk on top of everything. It's very frustrating, and our country is not going to be better off for it. The people who are doing these jobs, we need them in place to do these jobs. Our lives will become much more difficult because these people are not able to do the jobs that they're in place to do. So it's very scary going forward. This is all a very silly, comical, nonsensical situation that we're watching. Hopefully there is some kind of justice that comes from all of it. But really, I think that is a long shot, right? The fact that Elon Musk is even in the position in our government, in this administration that he's already in, is arguably illegal already, right? So whatever he's doing with these emails and with the Department of with OPM, nothing's going to come from it. Trump is protecting him because Trump needs him, because Trump needs him as his fall guy. As long as all the attention is on Elon Musk, no one is really paying as much attention to Trump to a degree. Of course, people are paying attention to Trump because he is still the president, even though some people will argue that not really. He's more of like a de facto president. But we'll see how this all goes. It's not going to be good, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. Unfortunately, I don't see it getting any better.
Well, one thing I think that would help, again, look, I want to give people hope.
Sorry for ending on such a sad note, by the way.
We're going to try to make it a little more positive. I love short-term hope. There's some of that right now. There's not a ton of that. And the long-term hope of the next presidential election, which we're going to continually talk about, that's a little bit too far. Let's look for something in the middle, which is that, in theory, midterm elections, if you get that, and if Jerry Connolly is packed off and sent to a farm upstate or whatever, is replaced with AOC, can you imagine the oversight hearings that we can have for the 2 years following that? Like if you get actual good people, you get her, you get Jasmine Crockett, you get maybe Katie Porter runs again or whatever. And then you have 2 years of them looking into this and making Elon Musk, if he's still around, and doggies' lives a living hell. Look, that's not a solution to all of the problems. That's not the same as gaining power once again, but it would be nice for me, I think. And I hope that for everyone. But anyway, we do need to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what's happening in town halls across America. All that and more after this. Okay, so I'm gonna start off. Explorer Infinity in the chat says, hope is as worthless as belief. No one needs hope. People need to take action. No, but Explorer Infinity, you don't think the hope influences people's desire to take action, their willingness to continue to take action? These are not separated separated things. Like these concepts are attached. You need the hope to believe that it's worth taking action. If you're utterly hopeless, if you believe that action is irrelevant, well then what are we doing? Why are we paying attention to literally any of this? And so I understand that you can't just have the hope, you need the action as well. But I think that you need a good, healthy combination of both. Now that said, membership gifting going on. Benjamin Morrill, as always, starting us off with one. Thank you. Cindy Bettendorf, once again, gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Laura Lan P gifted a membership. Thank you. And Red Death continues as a tier 2 member, which I really do appreciate. Related to, well, we'll return to the idea of members, but subscribers, 1.1 million. I don't know if that was the fastest 100,000 we ever got, but it's up there. We got it a little bit before the election and now 1.1. Thank you all. When the election happened and it was really negative, we were all worried like, oh God, are we gonna be alone? Does nobody care anymore? Is everybody just exhausted? And it looked briefly like that's what was gonna happen. People were unsubscribing, people weren't watching TV news. But I think that we've seen that low point is now behind us. People want to fight, they want to stop this horror that they see every morning when they wake up. And so that's one of the metrics that we use is people subscribing and following the show. And so thank you to everybody who became a subscriber and also to the members who helped to financially, keep the channel, keep the network afloat. We really do appreciate it. Okay, Zim says in a super chat, government of geniuses, all with capital J's. I like it, very idiocracy. Sailor Di Gurin says in a super chat, this is a reference to what I was talking about earlier. Majority report recommends we all send emails to the OMB detailing what we did in solidarity. Well, I think you mean the Office of Personnel Management, but hell, hit up the OMB too. Let them know what you think about the budget. We'll be talking about that later on. Galfar says, hey game, said John, can some of the 100K new members maybe join us over in the TYT official Discord too? I think that's a great idea. On Twitch, Galfar, I'm sure we'll share the link. I think Nightbot frequently does it, and so you can find out all about that and join that community too. Okay, Gargle Dragon says, someone who isn't me sent quotes from Monty Python and the Holy Grail to Musty's email. Definitely not gonna send more with Life of Brian quotes. I love it, let's see it. And now for something completely different. CK Progressive says, is it too early to recommend a garbage person of the week? I have Michigan State Rep Josh Shriver introducing a resolution calling on the Supreme Court to overturn gay marriage. It seems the only issue he cares about. Yeah, and for the reasons he says, not for other reasons. It's just the reasons he actually says in speeches. Can you imagine that? Gay marriage has been legal for more than 10 years. I don't know exactly how many years because like every reasonable person who has hobbies and a life of their own, I just accept that's the new normal. It's awesome. Let people live their lives. But for others, they've spent the last 10 years just like, when are we gonna be able to take that back? I can't sleep. I certainly can't sleep with my wife as long as those gays are getting married. Bizarre, strange little creatures. Anyway, Batting Comic says in a super chat, the Dogecoin community is tired of Elon and using the name Doge. It's affecting us badly. We don't want to be associated with it or him. In this case, because you are going up against Elon Musk, I will take the Dogecoin community's side of this. I will say in general, I don't really care about the Dogecoin community either. What are you guys doing with the coins? But anyway, thank you for standing in solidarity against Musk at least. We'll be right back. We're gonna tomorrow on the show. We'll do a full thing about the attempt to ban gay marriage again. But like they said in advance, we can't let it legalize. It's gonna ruin society. And then it got legalized. And then 10 years pass. And how did it ruin society? Oh, it didn't? Let's ban it anyway. Forget all that stuff we said about the future of civilization and about Rome falling. I don't like gays, so let's just get rid of it. These people are utterly pathetic and they desperately need a hobby. I have many. I could recommend one. But with that, why don't we move on to other news? Town halls are a big tradition in American politics. You go, you ask questions, have your voice be heard, and sometimes those voices are raised, and those can actually be the most awesome town halls. Take a look.
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it.
Answer it.
Okay, I am very glad that someone is looking at all of the waste.
It's not up to Musk. You're surrendering to billionaires, you coward.
Yeah, I kind of love that. There was a little bit of crosstalk at the beginning. I don't know if they were saying boo or boo earns or maybe go F yourself. It was one of those three things. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll have to ask California Representative Jay Obernolte, who was holding that town hall. And look, it dissolved into the sort of chaos that you would expect because they wanted to know why he was okay with Elon Musk, who nobody voted for, deciding, all that stuff that Congress passed, all that stuff that you might have voted for, Obernolte. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna get rid of that because I'm Elon Musk. I'm a billionaire, I'm better than you. I'll do whatever I want. And that's not okay from the point of view of his constituents. And I love that they had their voices be heard. Again, I always fear after one of these videos that's that for town halls for this dude. Maybe not, we'll see. But just in case, we wanted to give you a couple more of the quotes from people there. One, Joseph Candelaria said, "This community struggles with gainful employment. 6 jobs have already been lost. You talk about how the military isn't paid enough, so let's take away SNAP benefits. You know who uses SNAP benefits? Military communities, because we don't pay them enough." And so he responded, "I'm sorry, what did I vote to take away?" And you've probably heard this from other representatives, like Elon Musk was like, don't say that I was canceling cancer funding. I didn't do that, and he totally did. So Jay Obernolte asked a question. And I'll assume that it's not a rhetorical question because if you watch the show often, you know that I'm done with rhetorical questions that should be actually answered. So let's answer it. Well, on the Congressional Budget Committee, he voted yes on a February 12th budget resolution that calls for at least $238 billion in cuts over 9 years to programs like the House Committee on Agriculture, which would include the supplemental nutrition assistance program. That would be a massive cut to food stamps, which not just Libby Libs and crunchy granola commies use, lots of conservatives, and indeed a lot of vets use that. He's trying to kill that program, so you should be angry about that. And he goes on to say that there's been a lot of angst and consternation about programs that everyone relies on, like Social Security, like Medicare, like Medicaid. I want to be crystal clear about this. No one is talking about reducing benefits for people who depend on them. Go to effing hell. They are talking about an $880 billion cut to Medicaid. They haven't even gotten started on Social Security yet. We already know that they want to reduce the benefits. We already know that they want to make you grind out another 3 years of back-breaking labor on the tail end of your career before you finally get the benefits that you've been putting into for literally decades. And this a-hole is going to stand there and lie about it? I know what's in that bill. I'm following. We're going to talk about it later in the show. Is he implying that he doesn't know what's in Mike Johnson's budget bill? Because it 100% includes that nearly $1 trillion in cuts to those programs that he's lying about right now. And then he tries to imply that it was a mistake for people in the national park system to be laid off and we're getting that mistake corrected. No. They've hired back a few people who were defending the nukes, a few people who were looking into bird flu or whatever. Because again, there are many mistakes when you have idiots in charge. But no, they're cutting massive funding in the national park system. People in these communities will be losing their jobs. This dude is running scared, and he should be. He both should be scared because people understand how terrible what's happening actually is, and he should be running and soon will, because I can't imagine he's gonna want to do a lot more of these town halls in the near future. But Yaz, what do you make of this?
I love this, right? I love all these videos, and I love that these Congress people are actually hearing from their constituents or making an effort to do so. And these constituents, I love how they're utterly unapologetic and unforgiving in both their criticism of their elected officials and their consternation. But I am a little concerned that they will just stop doing these town halls altogether because, what good does it do for them? It doesn't do any good for these representatives who typically do whatever they want once they're in office, or at least whatever Trump or Elon Musk wants them to do. They do these town halls and then they get yelled at by angry people who are trying to hold them accountable, people who are telling them to their faces that they are cowards and that they're bad at their jobs. They then get blasted on social media and the internet for being completely incompetent and for attempting to gaslight the American people. And everyone can see and hear how disliked they are. We heard all the boos, we heard all the things that were being yelled at these politicians, and these videos are viral on the internet now. It is bad for a politician's image. Politicians, they live and they die by their brand and by the public's perception. And if the public, if they were before, they're no longer fooled by the smoke and mirrors and all the double speak and all the doubling down that these politicians so often do. And people are tired of being spoken to as if they're stupid. We just saw Rich McCormick over in Georgia. He compared his town hall to the January 6th insurrection, which he wasn't even there for. He didn't get into Congress until 2023, but he made very condescending attempts to lecture and quell the people at his town hall, his constituents, as if he was addressing a classroom full of children. And then he just continued to stick to his existing talking points without really addressing any of the concerns that the people were actually bringing up. And the American people, I think, are finally waking up to the fact that these Congress people work for us, right? They're in these positions because we let them be in those positions, and we're supposed to hold them accountable. That's part of the job. They should expect that their constituents, including the people who voted for them, especially the people who voted for them, should hold them accountable. But it is uncomfortable. In a lot of ways, being an American congressperson is a thankless job. That's the job that they signed up for. That's the job that they ran for, they campaigned for, they begged for, right? That is the job they wanted. So now do the job. This is part of the job. And if it's uncomfortable for you, I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for you.
No, 100%. You should be held accountable. And unfortunately for him, this is probably what that's gonna look like. I look at the election results. In the last election, he had slightly more than 60% of the vote. So he's probably safe. That said, they are shaping up. And look, I'm making this prediction right now. If I end up being wrong, then play the tape, in 2 years. I'm gonna have much bigger worries on my mind than whether I got a prediction wrong. But I think that they are prepping the ground for an absolute shellacking in the midterms. And is it impossible that with the right candidate, a dude who got slightly more than 60% of the vote could potentially be one of the casualties when the American people say, hey, we gave you guys a chance, and what the hell were you doing for the last 2 years? Get the hell out of here. Could be. But if not him, maybe it's another one. We actually have another example for you. Support for Elon Musk is getting another congressman in trouble during one of his live forums. Take a look at this.
Elon Musk has contracts with the federal government. But he is also, I think, doing an effective job. to see waste, abuse, and fraud weeded out. Some of them here today.
I don't want him in charge of it.
But he is
waste, fraud, and abuse.
Executive who can appoint whoever he can appoint you.
I thought it was your job.
The next election to elect someone that you believe.
We didn't elect anyone. Remember your oath. You don't represent us. You represent Elon Musk. You're a violation of your oath, sir.
Yeah, so they think that they have the perfect cover for all this. Oh, yeah, no, I know that it looks bad that the richest man in the world bought Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and now he's in the government, potentially giving himself more contracts, destroying his competitors. One of the most corrupt men in politics who's been suckling on the teat of government for literally years. That's how his companies survived during their darkest days. Yeah, that looks pretty bad, but some of you just don't want to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah, keep using that line. See if it saves your party in the next election. But that wasn't his only defense. He wants to turn to religion to placate the angry mass at his Mondays with Mark coffee. And so he said, God has a plan and a purpose for your life. So I would encourage anyone who finds themselves in this situation, having lost their job, to realize that we're gonna get this economy turning again. There are jobs available. So yeah, no, the richest man in the world who utterly despises anyone who works for a paycheck. Yeah, he fired thousands of people and he doesn't really seem to be doing any thinking or planning or consideration before he does that. And yeah, he might be wrecking our government, but God has a plan and a purpose for your life. I think that if I'd lost my job, that would have given me a lot of peace actually to have heard that. But they lost their mind. He feels like they're being unfair. So he takes to Twitter to give the full quote of what he means. And maybe that's better. I want to be fair. I'm a real journalist. So he says, actually, the full quote is, God has a plan and a purpose for your life. You are not a victim, you are a victor. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, if I lost my job after doing literally years and I had crucial experience and institutional knowledge, but I was cut because some 17-year-old whose only qualification for the job is that he likes Elon Musk's tweets a lot. Yeah, that made me feel like I was a victim. It's good to know that I'm actually a victor. It amazes me. If you ever think out there, dear viewer, that you couldn't be a congressperson, because surely they're knowledgeable, they have all this experience, they're better than us in some way, right? That's the best he's got. You're not a victim, you're a victor. I don't know, Yaz, what do you think about that? How would you feel if you were his constituent?
I'd be very upset. I wouldn't be able to take him seriously. I probably wouldn't have voted for somebody who says things like that in the first place. But if somebody like that was representing me, and actually, yeah, somebody like that does represent me here in Texas. But it is very frustrating because you can't argue with that kind of point. There's nothing that can be said that would convince that man that what he said was wrong or ineffectual because he thinks that he delivered something that was inarguable against, right? And I think the American people, I'm gonna say, there's been a lot of waffling back and forth. I think we all have whiplash, right? And we are tired, we are exhausted, and our heads hurt, right? Usually every 8 years we get a different president. Sometimes that means a different party's in power every 8 years. But lately, we've been bouncing back and forth violently every 4 years, right? We had 4 years of Trump and then 4 years of Biden. Now we have Trump again. It's very confusing. And not just have the presidents change and the parties change, but the power has been consolidated in such a way that Congress now moves as a complete block, right? So Congress doesn't serve as any kind of check or balance on the executive like it used to, because they just completely back whoever the president is. And even the individuals in Congress, they don't have much of a voice apart from just being part of that block. And I think a lot of Americans, myself included, are feeling that I would wish that I just want someone in Congress representing me who can actually think for themselves, right? These are supposed to be some of the most brilliant or most qualified individuals in the country who wanted that job, who thought that they could do a good job in that position for the American people, for their constituents. At least that's what they say. The reasons why they wanted that job were. And people aren't seeing that, right? And so every 4 years we're voting for change. Maybe it'll come from over here. Maybe it'll come from over here. These people are disappointing. Let me try the other guys. It's not happening though, right? Things just keep getting progressively worse and worse and worse for the American people. And these issues that are actually affecting people's lives, not things like gay marriage, not things like transgender people just existing, But the housing market, the cost of eggs, all the layoffs that are happening, things are getting demonstrably and tangibly worse for the American people, and people are tired. And I think that is why we're seeing this outrage happening. And I think that's why whenever Congress people say things like, just quoting the Bible as if that's going to be enough for you, it is not enough for most people, and it should not be enough for most people.
Not at all. Yeah, and you're totally right. We're going to do it tomorrow on the show, but I just saw a big New York Times thing of people bracing for prices to be raised, and the fact that they're starting to spend less because they're worried about their job being lost or not being able to afford things in the future. That's having ripple effects throughout the economy. This is how you get a recession. And I just want everyone to bear in mind, like at least Elon Musk was honest after the election. He was like, yeah, no, there's going to be some suffering. So he was honest to that extent. But I will remind everyone, he's not going to feel it. He's not going to suffer. Donald Trump isn't going to suffer. Mark Alford isn't going to suffer. The other dude, whose name I've already forgotten and I'm probably never going to remember, in California, they're not going to suffer. They're fine. They're doing okay. They're going to get cushy jobs after this because they delivered for their donors, those who actually own their party and own them. But for regular Americans, regular conservatives too, you're the one who's going to be paying the price. And again, like you don't have to admit that you were conned necessarily. Like I don't demand that of anyone. But just want better for yourself, want better for your family. Just because you voted for a guy or voted for a party doesn't mean you need to do it next time. Doesn't mean you have to continue to support him. The MAGA hat that you bought and that you put on your head, that goes into a drawer, never to be seen again. Super easy. I'm not going to point it out. Normalize leaving the cult, I think, and let's try to invite people back to sanity and rationality if they're ready to make that trip. Now that said, we are going to talk a little bit more about other ways that Donald Trump is hurting the economy starting now. In just a moment, we're going to get to one of the ways that Donald Trump is now promising that in the near future, he's going to be hurting the economy and your family's finances. But first, though, I want to give him a chance to make himself look like a complete and utter fool. Take a look.
Who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything, every aspect that you could imagine they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this? So the tariffs will go forward, yes, and we're going to make up a lot of territory.
Yeah. Oh, these deals that people sign. Oh, it lets Canada they're taking advantage of us. They're robbing us blind. And I sit up late at night reading, because that's a thing that Donald Trump, do. I read late at night. I'm not tweeting or anything. I read, and I look at these deals and I'm just thinking, like, who would be so stupid that they would sign these things? Well, I can't speak to all of them, but he is talking today about 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Those are coming back. He delayed it for a month, but they're now coming. And I know who signed one of these things. It was him, of course it was him. You already knew deep within your bones that it was him. He signed the USMCA, Mexico, Canada, US trade deal in 2020. And look, there's two different ways that you can interpret the clip that you just saw. Either Donald Trump is bald-faced lying to you and doesn't want you to know that he signed up for a deal that apparently has resulted in us being robbed blind day after day for the last 5 years, or Grandpa doesn't remember. Like, I'll remind everyone, back during the election, he'd give these speeches and his brain would just utterly shut down. And nobody paid attention to it because Sleepy Joe had more obvious signs of mental decline. But it's entirely possible that, the weight of age is just wearing on Donald Trump, and he literally doesn't remember that he signed these deals that he not only got, but oh my God, he was so excited for these at the time. He put out a press release. It was a historic win for American workers. President Donald J. Trump's United States-Mexico-Canada agreement delivers a historic win. It's so great, everyone give him credit. And it even had this quote from Trump: the USMCA is the largest, most significant, modern, and balanced trade agreement in history. All of our countries will benefit greatly with this deal that, now that I think about it, is highway robbery. What dunce, what dumb donkey signed this thing? And so he wants something different. And so that deal that he got before, that was a disaster. He wants a new disaster. And so 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, affecting a few things. Like, let's see, fruit and vegetables, grain, livestock, meats, Poultry, oil and gas that we import, almost certainly reciprocal tariffs will jack the price up of that. Oh, motor vehicles as well, vehicle parts for cars. If you're not planning on buying a new one, often you get car parts from other countries, and we buy them from them. They buy them from us. These tariffs are going to devastate both of those. So we put the tariffs up on them, meaning that when you want to buy one of these many products, and these are some of our biggest trade partners, you're going to have to pay 25% more. Oh, also, they're going to put the tariffs on us, which means that our companies are probably going to sell less products abroad, which means job cuts here in America. And so he really gets you coming and going here. I know that people voted for Donald Trump because they were feeling desperate and they wanted a change in the economy. The economy wasn't working well. Well, they got a change coming. I can't imagine they're going to like this more than the status quo of 2024. But Yaz, what do you make of this deal?
Yeah. Okay, I don't know what Trump is talking about most of the time that he's talking. And I think that's less of a testament to like my intelligence, but not to overuse the word, but I think it's a weird form of gaslighting because he says things like what he said in the clip that you just showed. And I'm thinking, wasn't that you though? Like you did that. And then I start to question my own memory and knowledge of what happened. And I really shouldn't. None of us should. None of us should let this man make us think that we don't know the things that we know, because as he pointed out, that's either his complete intention or he really doesn't remember doing the things that he's done or saying the things that he has said. Or he knows that he can do and say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter what he has done and said in the past because there is no consistency with him. And consistency is not something that anyone should expect from a guy like Donald Trump, who just does whatever he wants on a whim. He says something, if people laugh at it or applaud for it, then he says, that was good, I'm gonna do more of it. But this is a very interesting move because the tariffs were banned nonstop the first time they were floated. And then whenever they were revoked, he said, well, we got what we wanted out of those countries. So it was all just a big show. And it was all just, to scare them into complying with what we, the American people wanted, the American presidency wanted. But the thing is, we really didn't get everything that we wanted from either Mexico or Canada. They conceded a little bit, but really not to the extent that Trump was saying that they did. And then now they're back anyway. So all of the supporters who supported Trump's big talk about tariffs and said, no, he was never actually going to do the tariffs. He only wanted to do it to intimidate these other countries, our other allies, right? What is their argument now? Because now the tariffs are back, right? And we all knew that they were going to come back eventually. We all knew that there was a deadline. We all knew that he was waiting for something. This is going to hurt the American people. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone who is not just completely blind to Trump and just completely sycophantic towards Trump and Elon Musk, everyone knows that this is going to hurt the American people. If they don't know, they need to be educated because they are frankly just misinformed at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen because if anything, Americans vote with their wallets, right? I don't know what the long-term plan is for Donald Trump or Elon Musk because they know that once the American people cannot afford the things that they want at the grocery store or at the gas pump or wherever, that things are going to go bad. Things are going to flip to the other side. They're not going to be in power for much longer, but maybe they have another concept of a plan to address that when the time comes, but we don't know.
Well, I have an idea, and I want people to be prepared. Not just us. When the economy goes south, we're going to understand why it happened. But conservatives, who you're going to be the target of endless amounts of right-wing propaganda to get you to think about something else. There's going to be caravans from down south, and there's going to be a new trans swimmer or something, and that is literally what they're going to use to try to get you to shut the hell up and accept the fact that you're paying 30% more than you used to for basically everything that you buy. And maybe for some of you, maybe you're so xenophobic or you're so transphobic that that'll work on you. I think more of you than that. I think you're going to see through the con, but just don't get it twisted. It's coming. With that said, we have to take our second break of the hour. We'll be back with more after this. Okay, I think I think we're gonna end the hour with E, and then we'll figure out for the aftermath how we're gonna reconfigure things. The D block is unfortunately gonna have to be moved a little bit, but let's jump into some comments, everyone. Maura Nolan became a member. Thank you so much, appreciate it. Love the members. Gakar gifted a membership. Thank you. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon, hey Bernie. Member for 50 months says, hi Yaz, hi John. I'm delivering a statement in court tomorrow for witnessing an assault on a train. Any advice? No, I've never really delivered a statement in court. I got considered for jury duty once, but I've never been chosen. Be honest. I'm trying to remember as much as you can, I suppose. I don't know. That's a very interesting situation. I'm glad that you are there to provide your perspective. Stephen Sayers, member for 13 months, says tax the rich. Obviously, 100%. Gilded History of the US, member for 2 full years on YouTube, says we spent my grad class talking on Reconstruction period last night, and America's no better than it was. We're the resistance. I mean, I think in some ways, I think in terms of respect or acceptance of democracy, I think that we've backslid to, that rough time period. Mariah, the Ginkgo Dragon, says this comment is totally inconsequential, but John looks sharp today. Oh, well, thank you, I appreciate it. Okay.
I do. I was gonna tell you, and your hair looks good today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Very nice.
Well, as I told people on the show yesterday, my wife won a Best Dressed award at a wedding we went to over the weekend. So I'm just trying to match her in that respect. So.
Good. At least you're trying, because I'm tired of seeing these women who look so incredible and then they have like a schlubby husband next to them. So good for you.
My wife is sick of that too, by the way. Let me just tell you. But anyway, in the chat, Adiana says John kind of looks like James Dean. You didn't know Adiana is James Dean. She thought I was Marty McFly. Gotta get her to watch some old movies. But anyway, Adiana got married this weekend. Congrats to Adi and Jorby. Great couple and an awesome wedding. Okay, I'll be posting some photos, by the way, from the wedding on Instagram, instagram.com/John Iadarola a little bit later on, so that you can evaluate if I looked more like James Dean or like Fry from Futurama or Marty McFly. Anyway, okay, Benjamin Morrill says in a super chat, my cousin Tina from Alaska got canned, tagged polar bears and worked with local Inuit population. Forest Service, 20 years gone, her whole life. Yeah, that's the sort of, and it was probably an 18-year-old DOGE person. It's just like, no, that's stupid. I don't care. We're getting rid of you. It's absolutely insane to me that you would get rid of people with that experience and connections to the community that they've been serving. And almost what's worse is that there are so many regular workers that have allowed themselves to be duped into thinking, oh, well, they're going after workers, but those are crappy workers. Those are government workers. They're not like me. I'm a hard worker. They're lazy, and I should know because a dude on Fox News who makes $25 million a year told me that they're lazy. So I don't care if all of them lose their job. Okay, well, when they came for the government employees, you said nothing. I'm sure they'll never come for your job. They'll never automate what you do. Look, when they do, despite the fact that you might not have been an ally on this, I'm still gonna defend you to the extent that I can, but I would love for everyone to have solidarity with the other workers who are now being picked off one at a time, 10,000 at a time, 100,000 at a time. Okay, Paul says in a super chat, my wife's aunt took her on a Star Trek cruise this week with mostly Voyager cast there for events. Need some good news to distract me from my jealousy. I'm very jealous because that sounds awesome. Let me know which cast members, by the way. I gotta do one of those at some point. I know that it would be cheesy and nerdy and all that, but I really do love Voyager. But anyway, with that said, we have another big story to end the hour with, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Okay, everybody, hit the like button if you're just joining us now, and we're gonna jump to this. Speaker Mike Johnson acknowledged just yesterday that he does, it looks like, lack the votes to actually pass Donald Trump's one big beautiful bill that Donald Trump wants on the budget, which includes, of course, massive cuts, nearly $1 trillion to Medicare and Medicaid, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars overall to SNAP, and other critical social programs that his voters depend on to survive. And how bad is the situation for the speaker? He's actually now asking for spiritual help. He said, this is a prayer request. Just pray this through for us because it's very high stakes. Now, look, I don't think that's gonna do anything. I'm an atheist. I don't think prayer's real. Don't get on my back about it. I don't think it's real. But I do think that if it were real, I think that God's probably got bigger fish to fry than helping you get past the goal line of your bill, which is gonna screw over those who are suffering the most and most need assistance from the government. That doesn't seem like the sort of things that Jesus was talking about in the New Testament, but I don't know. He's the one who's supposedly obsessed with the Bible. But anyway, he acknowledges that there may be more than one Republican who is currently against the budget plan. And we're gonna give you the rundown of that because it's important. Remember, he has a very narrow margin in the House, a historically narrow margin. And so he does say, even though there's more than one, I think they'll fall in line. He said, I don't think anybody wants to be in front of this train. I think they want to be on it, which is a threat, basically, that you're going to be run over by a train if you vote against this. But he says, and people come in with genuine conviction, about the debt and the deficit and about these issues. But I'm often reminded, and I remind my colleagues all the time, what Ronald Reagan reminded us. I'd rather get 80% of what I want than go over the cliff with a flag wave. But again, it's not going over the cliff with a flag wave. It's sending your constituents over the cliff, which probably isn't great for your career. When you know that your constituents depend on these programs and you're gonna give a big old thumbs up to cutting them, screwing over your constituents, how is that gonna work out for your career? And specifically, the programs he's talking about, moderates in the House, Republicans, moderates, have asked for assurances that Medicare and Medicaid won't be cut. You're not gonna get that. At least not this round, at least not until you kill this big, beautiful bill. Representative Tony Gonzalez said, while we fully support efforts to rein in wasteful spending and deliver on Trump's agenda, it's imperative that we do not slash programs that support American communities across our nation. But they are, that's what the bill already is. So I can't see how Representative Tony Gonzalez is gonna support it. Again, $880 billion in Medicaid cuts over the next decade. And because of that, it could reduce incomes for the bottom 40% more than extending the Trump tax cuts would boost them, and the lowest income households would fare the worst. And so Tony Gonzalez might be a no. Warren Davidson announced just before we went live on the show, he opposes the budget bill. Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Victoria Sparks of Indiana are publicly opposing it as well. Tim Burchett is leaning against it. New York Representative Nicole Malliotakis has also been saying she has concerns about the cuts to Medicaid. Now that doesn't mean that they won't just say, screw all that. I don't want to have Donald Trump Truth Social about me, so I'm going to turn against it. But there's more than enough to kill this thing if they actually hold strong. Yaz, do you have any kind of prediction based on what you've been seeing?
I don't know about a prediction, but all I want is for the people in our government to just stop praying and just do something and do something along the line, do what they know they should be doing. Do the right thing, just do the right thing. It's a very, very low bar, but that's all I'm asking. If they just did something, they wouldn't have to pray so hard to get themselves out of the situation that they got themselves into. And we don't talk about that enough. I just did a video on Rebel HQ and we talked about this on Friday's show with Cenk and Mark, but I just don't have any sympathy for these elected congressional leaders who are now having a hard time wrangling the president and the MAGA movement, who they have empowered with their inaction, with their unwillingness to speak up against the worst things that have come out of either Trump or the MAGA movement, to the point that both Trump and his more ardent MAGA supporters in Congress have become this impenetrable, formidable, and just scary block of opposition. But this is what was always on the table. We always knew that they were going to be coming for Medicaid. We always knew they were coming for Social Security, for these big money, big single item tickets. Because if they want to cut back $2 trillion from the budget, right? If they give people $2 trillion worth of tax cuts to the wealthy, they have to balance that book somewhere. That's how accounting works. That's how government works, right? They have to find that money elsewhere to pay for those tax cuts. You're not gonna get it from any of what is on the DOGE website right now. Elon Musk keeps saying that he found $55 billion worth of cuts in the government, of fraudulent spending or whatever he's calling it. It's not there. If you add up the numbers, it does not add up to $55 billion. So for all of his talk of transparency, he is being wildly not transparent with the American people. And for some reason, some American people are still supporting everything that he's doing in our government, and they're not thinking long-term at all. They think that this is somehow going to benefit them in the long run, and it will. There's no way that this is going to benefit the actual American people as they keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting from our social services and from things like infrastructure, the things that we pay taxes for. No one's gonna argue that they can spend that money better, that they can spend our tax dollars better. Most of the arguments that we have in government, in politics, has to do with how tax dollars are being spent. We want more money over here, some other people want more money over there. But what is happening right now, just completely cutting money from entire budgets and cutting staff down from entire departments, is not going to help the American people. And now they're coming for Medicaid. They're also cutting down the IRS. It's not going to be good for people at tax time, but it is going to be beneficial for the wealthy at tax time. So don't want to be like, I told you so, but we all knew this was coming.
Yeah, and when they do it, we're gonna see if Republicans will actually stand up against it, and if not, if they do all of these cuts, what Republican voters will actually think about it.
They're gonna pray about it.
Yeah, probably. My final point, there was this big debate, like why did people turn for Donald Trump? Was it economic stuff? Was it, racism, transphobia, misogyny, and all of that? And I think it's probably a mix of both. But whether you think it was like all of the isms or whatever, these Republicans damn sure seem to think that's why it is. Why else would they be taking these conservatives who said, I want help, like economic help. The economy's just not strong enough with Joe Biden. I need help. And they say, screw off, we're gonna give $5 to $10 trillion to the wealthy, but don't worry, there won't be a trans opera in Argentina. Don't worry, your family's screwed. Your kids are never going to college, you're never gonna own a home, but don't worry, some black dude in Boston won't have a government job anymore. Don't worry, you can say transphobic slurs on Facebook. The only stuff they're giving you seems evidence that they think it's the isms that are driving this group. I don't necessarily think that, but why is it the Republicans govern like they think that? But I can't wait for them to prove me wrong. And with that said, we're gonna have to end the first hour. There's a lot more to come in the aftermath, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Aftermath, one and all. Lots of interesting stories to talk about in this edition of the Aftermath with Yaz. Yaz, what have you been covering recently on Rebel HQ? You've muted yourself, by the way, I think. Uh-oh. Have we lost yet? I can see that you're muted in Zoom, I think.
Okay, sorry, I was having difficulties with my microphone and then you tossed to me and I was like, oh no. Yeah, so what have I been talking about on Rebel HQ lately? That is a great question. Today I did a video about how people are starting to hold their Republican leaders accountable, kind of what I referenced it in the last story. And we did talk about it on Friday's show, on the main show. But basically, people are tired of these Republican leaders just not doing their jobs. And there were all these death threats coming out against Republican leaders, and they're saying this is why we can't vote the way we actually want to, and this is why we have enabled Donald Trump and his MAGA cronies to this point, because otherwise his people are going to riot our Capitol building, and it's very scary. But instead of doing anything to actually curtail that type of behavior, they just concede to it, and they just let it perpetuate, and they let it get worse and worse and worse. And in the meantime, the American people are worse off for it. So that is the latest over on Rebel HQ. And yeah, I do 4 videos a week over there, so there's always something to talk about.
Damn, you are busy over there. Okay, well, everyone check out Rebel HQ, and you can see Yaz's work. And with that, I'm gonna make you look at a video, everyone. Let's jump into this. Leaked video footage has apparently been aired across TVs in the Department of Housing and Urban Development building, and it is certainly a sight to see that you now must see.
We want for, I don't know, like,
Yeah, so somebody hacked into those monitors and it was just playing on a loop. And seeing it once, I think, is bad enough. Seeing it multiple times, having a confirmation that, yeah, no, you saw what you thought you saw, that's something that I don't think is gonna go away anytime soon. Now, I am hearing some people say that that might be AI, a deep fake. And I think people are really getting ahead of themselves by just implying that anything they don't want to believe is a deep fake. I think we need to be more responsible than that and consider that this might be real. And if it is, this is a pretty massive privacy violation. Elon Musk and Donald Trump, agree with them or not, and I don't, they deserve privacy rights too. And what they get up to behind closed doors, in the Oval Office, behind the Resolute desk is up to them. And by the way, a lot of people are asserting that that video is proof of some sort of sexual thing. It doesn't have to be sexual. This could just be a non-sexual act of submission where Donald Trump shows due appreciation for the man wielding real power in the White House. I think it's kind of sweet, maybe even romantic, maybe even beautiful. Not beautiful, but maybe sweet, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not gonna hear any sub-shaming here on TDR, not today, not ever. But that said, you might have noticed when watching that video, once you got past the whole foot thing, the text on it. So if we could bring up a shot of it, yeah, we're gonna make you look at the feet again. It says, "Long live the real king," which is obviously a reference to Donald Trump's bleat, "Long live the king." And so, look, I don't know who actually made this thing, but I like it. I like the political satire of it. I like that it reflects what people really think. When Quinnipiac polled people, this is a month into Trump's term, 55% said that Musk has too much power. Only 3% said that he has too little. People don't actually like Elon Musk running amok. They don't like that Donald Trump has metaphorically been tongue bathing Elon Musk's feet. And so, Yaz, what do you make of this act of nonviolent civil disobedience, I guess?
Yeah, I intentionally did not watch this video, but then I saw that I was co-hosting TDR today, and I was like, he's gonna make me watch the video. So thank you for that, John, for not disappointing. But also good point. We're not here to kink shame. If that's what they get up to, then good for them. As long as they're happy, as long as it's consensual, then more power to them. But the irony is that this is really about power. Yes, this is all very funny, but if anyone's gonna hack, big government televisions, and perhaps we could have gotten something a little bit more productive. To that point, though, it is kind of a scary, slippery slope that we're seeing. Technology has advanced so quickly in so little time that people really don't understand how it works. They don't understand the implications of it. They don't understand how to interact with it, right? And we're still learning how this kind of technology, between the AI and the deep fakes and just everything that implies, we're still learning how those things are going to impact our everyday lives. People do not understand that a lot of what they see on the internet these days is not real. They don't understand that astroturfing is a thing and that fake posts are a thing. For all of the cries of fake news, people are still very unsavvy when it comes to discerning what is real and what is not real on the internet. And that's by design. You're not supposed to be able to easily discern what is real and what isn't. That's what they want, right? So you just have to be a little bit more diligent in the way that you consume media on the internet. But lately we've been seeing a lot of older people getting on these social media platforms, not getting off of them as I would like them to, but they're getting on more social media platforms. And so I fear that things are just going to get worse from this point. This was fun, but it also is an interesting commentary on where we're headed as a country. So buckle up, everyone.
Yes. They're getting on. There's enough getting off going on in this story already. Really fast, can we play that video one more time? Because I think I've used AI, so I think I can identify if it's a deep, and I think I actually did. Can we play that again? And I'll tell people what it is. You think it's?
Are you
I think it's fake because Donald Trump is definitely a guy who has never once engaged in foreplay, and I think that's the real giveaway right there. Giving lover, yeah. Anyway, with that said, I think that we should move right on to a far more serious story. And I swear there will be no more feet, or at least you're not going to see any feet coming out of my feed. Now, that said, let's move on to this. Despite the GOP clamoring nonstop about violent criminal migrants and trans people being a massive threat to America's women, it turns out that, as is so often the case, the true danger is coming from inside the House of Representatives in this case. And one of the biggest proponents of this xenophobic and transphobic propaganda strategy, Representative Corey Mills, who now finds himself under investigation for an alleged assault of his 27-year-old girlfriend. Now, important additional context beyond the allegation of assault is that he is 44, and also married to a different woman and has 2 kids, which is so strange because the Republican Party has always been a bastion of true families, values, conservatives. Anyway, the alleged assault reportedly occurred last Wednesday in his luxury penthouse in Washington, D.C. Now, bear in mind, he denies any wrongdoing. That said, we should talk about what the cops actually found. So the police report of the incident noted that Raviani, the girlfriend in this case, appeared, quote, physically shaking and scared in the lobby of a nearby building when officers arrived to investigate her report of a domestic disturbance. She told the officers that her significant other for over a year grabbed her, shoved her, and pushed her out of the door, leaving, quote, bruises on her arm, which appeared fresh to police investigators. Her significant other in this case is believed to be Mills. Now, police said that Mills instructed the woman, quote, to lie about the origin of her bruises, even though she admitted that the situation escalated from verbal to physical, and it was severe enough to create the bruising that we talked about. When an officer said that he'd have to arrest Mills, the woman reportedly then changed her story, saying that the bruises came from her eczema skin condition and activities from a recent overseas trip to Dubai. So as of right now, the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department said it's investigating both Mills and its own handling of the incident. No arrests have yet been made in the matter, but they are obviously investigating. And bear in mind the recent context of this. Mills said in January that he voted for the Preventing Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act, a bill that he said would be a, quote, step forward in restoring the safety and security of America's women and children by deporting people. Now, of course, if it turns out that these allegations are true, it would put Mills in good company. Donald Trump has already been adjudicated to be a predator who has preyed on women. Pete Hegseth has been accused of preying on women as well, as is so often the case. It's not the migrants and it's not the trans people. It's Republican politicians that have either been already adjudicated or facing serious accusations of preying on America's women. Maybe we could have a bill to protect women from Republicans. But Yaz, what do you think?
My bad, sorry. The danger is inside the house, right? We know. And by we, I mean women know. And by women, I am including conservative women in that statement. And they know this. From the looks of it, they might know this more than Democratic women. I don't know. But the way they vote and the way they speak about women's issues, you wouldn't know it. They have vocally and publicly supported and enabled Republican men being in positions of power, even after knowing, after there is evidence, after there have been court cases, after there have been criminal convictions proving that these men have had histories of violence, especially violence against women, and they have tempers and all these things, and they just excuse all of it. And they say, that guy needs to be my president. That guy needs to be in charge of the Department of Defense. That guy needs to be on the Supreme Court. They just make all kinds of excuses. I don't know why, because it doesn't actually benefit them to do that. It doesn't benefit them to enable these men or to uplift them to positions of power over them. I'm not comfortable having men like this in power above me, over our nation, right? That makes me very uncomfortable, actually. I don't like the idea that these types of people make decisions and make laws and regulations that have to do with my physical body. I don't love that. I really, really hate that, actually. And these type of women who support these things and these people, they really need to just like get a voice for yourself, just think for yourself. And a lot of them do. A lot of them will say, I do think for myself and I still support these things because I think this and that and that and that, which is fair. Maybe they'll get to a different place later in life. Maybe they'll have some kind of realization later in life. Maybe not. Maybe those really are their values and we have to let them have their values. But at the end of the day, I don't like having these guys in power. And for all of the Republican grandstanding about protecting women and for protecting whoever and the children from all these illegal immigrants, it's all just a way to divert everyone's attention elsewhere because they're the ones actually committing the violence against women.
Yeah, or at least, and we have to say again,
that
in this
we've
case,
seen
an allegation. But yeah, in previous cases, it has been demonstrated. And we'll see with this one. We're gonna see. That said, I'm gonna read a comment or two and then we're gonna jump into our next story. Candy Crow said in a super chat, Adam Schiff was right when he said Trump is in charge. He wants to outsource. It's less work and less blame. He likes the title and would rather golf. Well, he's certainly doing it every weekend. I love board game meetups. I do that. I go and we have a house, we hang out. I would not do that 4 weekends in a row. That's absurd. He's the president and he wants to go golf every single weekend from now until his heart pops in his chest. I will never understand that. Anyway, one other comment. Chaotic Neutral Dragon says, I know it's been mentioned a few times before, but what would it take to make TDR a 2-hour show? We the Dragons want it. We'll see. We'll see. It would require more help, I think, but I don't know if that's coming, but we'll find it. I know that there's an appetite for more. Certainly there's more news, but we have, a programming schedule and Indisputable comes right after us. So we'd probably have to start earlier. So it's a whole big thing. But anyway, I don't rule it out personally. We'll see if it ever happens. With that said, we saved the story yesterday for Yaz, so I want to talk about it with her now. Donald Trump is once again proving himself to be the laughing stock of the world after he got slapped down following an attempted victory lap concerning a total misreading of the results of the recent German election. So he put out this Truth Social post, and I know that it's gonna hurt your eyes even to look at it because it's all in caps for some reason. But he says there, looks like the Conservative Party in Germany has won the very big and highly anticipated election. Much like the USA, the people of Germany got tired of the no common sense agenda, especially in energy and immigration. And so, yay, congrats, and many more victories to follow. But hold on a second. Yes, the Conservative Party did win, but that's not the party that they'd been boosting going into this election. They were boosting the AfD. Now they have a different system in Germany. They don't generally just have 2 major parties. They have a parliamentary system. They have a lot of parties. And the Conservative Party, which almost undoubtedly is far more liberal than either of the parties in the US, is not the AfD. That's who they were boosting. Elon Musk was Skyping into their rallies or whatever. That's what you saw. JD Vance was going and boosting them. The Trump administration was super hard behind the AfD and they didn't win. They got 20% of the vote or whatever. And so suddenly it's a win for him if the conservatives win. And I know what you're thinking. No, maybe he's not actually mixing them up. Maybe he's also happy about the Conservative Party. But no, I think there's actually evidence inside of the message that that's not what's happening, because he specifically says energy and immigration. And the AfD, they're the hard anti-immigrant party in Germany. They're also the party that's pushing the most for the use of nuclear energy. They want to shake up the energy generation in Germany. So he really does seem to be talking about the AfD, which again, did not win that election. And would it be any surprise if Donald Trump was just totally bamboozled about what's actually going on there? I don't think so, but Yas, we bring you on because you're the foreign policy person. Do you think this is an uncharitable read of his tweet? What do you think he's trying to communicate there? Is he actually confused?
I mean, he might be. He might genuinely be confused, right? Because, or he's just trying to swing an L, an obvious L, into a W, and it's not really working, because anyone who knows anything about what's going on in Germany or around the world right now can see that that's not, whatever he's saying has happened is not what has happened. The Trump administration, specifically Trump, but also JD Vance and Elon Musk, they look terrible right now. They back the AfD in no uncertain terms, and the AfD is the super conservative party there, then have been said to be akin to neo-Nazis in Germany, which is very telling in Germany. And following the recent election, the AfD was decidedly voted against in Germany. So whatever sway Elon Musk thought he might have had, or JD Vance, not that I think JD Vance is fooling himself to think that he is influential in any way, let alone in not in the United States, let alone in Germany. But if 20% of Germans voted for the AfD, that means that 80% of the German population rejected the AfD. And I think that is something that we need to focus on. 20% is still a significant chunk, and it is a little scary, but 80% of Germans did not want that. They saw it for what it was. And also now, what it has done is it has reinvigorated calls from the German people telling the United States, get out of our government, stop messing with us. They've seen what Elon Musk has done to our government, how he has infiltrated our government. They saw what he was trying to do during their election whenever he was making speeches to the people in support of the AfD, when he was showing up at AfD meetings and rallies and things like that. And they were like, why are you here? Elon Musk, we can all delude ourselves into believing that he's not influential, but he is, right? And we need to understand that and accept that, because I don't think that he's going to be going away anytime soon, because even if he becomes unpopular, it almost doesn't matter, because he has so much money that he will continue to be influential in ways that we probably won't even be able to understand or comprehend or be privy to. So that is something that we need to be aware of and prepared for, whatever that means. But I think it is very reassuring that the people of Germany specifically have rejected this neo-Nazi white supremacist type of platform, and they're saying we're not interested in it. And since the election, a lot has been coming out from the German people that has been, things like on social media that have been saying, we're not for this platform. We don't agree with that AfD platform. We don't like it. We understand our own history better than most Americans understand their history. And we are not willing to go back to where we were 100 years ago.
I like it. You'd love to hear it. I'm going to end with one more graphic, because let's say that I'm wrong and he actually is super excited about the conservatives or whatever. Okay, well, incoming likely Chancellor Friedrich Merz said this: my absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that step by step, we can really achieve independence from the USA. I never thought I'd have to say something like this on a television program. But after Donald Trump's statements this week at the latest, it is clear that the Americans, at least this part of the Americans, this administration, are largely indifferent to the fate of Europe. So again, it doesn't seem like they really like you either, buddy. So anyway, and why? Yeah, the lies that he was telling about Ukraine, the lies that he was telling about Zelensky, they're not actually a fan of that. Donald Trump said, "I'm going to make us respected again around the globe." Are you feeling respected, everyone? I don't think so. And we're going to end with one more story. We only have a few minutes, but this is an interesting one, so let's jump into this. The right is once again fighting, and you love to see it. It started when Marjorie Greene posted this: Dan Crenshaw, did you threaten to kill my friend Tucker Carlson, in response to a journalist alleging that he had said something like that. So that's wild, and it's Marjorie Greene, so you're like, oh dear God, what did she read on 4chan today? And indeed, Dan Crenshaw responds, lol, no. So I guess that's probably it, right? Marge is crazy, she's doing a Marge there. Not so much. Take a look at this.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot. I haven't met him. He's the worst person.
I mean, that's pretty clear. If I ever meet him, I'll effing kill him. He's the worst person. Now, he's not wrong about that last part. Tucker Carlson is the worst person, but you did seem to threaten to kill him right there. And look, we can't rule out the possibility anything these days, I guess, could be a deep fake or whatever. We haven't yet seen any evidence of that. A representative for Crenshaw was reached for comment or was attempted to reach for comment from the Daily Beast, and they didn't respond. So they're not claiming that that's fake or manufactured. It seems to be true. And he has brawled with Carlson before. Carlson once called him one of the dumbest Republicans and eye patch McCain, while Crenshaw described Carlson as a cowardly, know-nothing elitist, which is definitely the case. And I love the idea that Tucker Carlson, who pals around with Marjorie Greene and stuff like that, thinks that Dan Crenshaw is one of the stupidest Republicans. I understand there's a lot of dum-dums running around there, but seriously. And now he is saying he wants to interview Dan Crenshaw, saying, I'll send you my address. So maybe nothing will come of this, Yaz. Maybe Tucker Carlson and Dan Crenshaw will talk. Maybe Dan Crenshaw will unalive Tucker Carlson in his house. I don't know. Would you really be shocked if that happened, considering the politics of 2025? But anyway, what do you make of this crazy story?
Honestly, at this point, I don't know what could or would shock me anymore. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I think a lot of people watching what's happening in the news today and in the country today and in the world today are just like, yeah, that's what happened. That this is what we have to deal with now. And we're all just so stunted by it. But Dan Crenshaw, he's probably not the dumbest person in all of Congress right now, especially not on the Republican side. I don't like him, but I wouldn't say that he's like the dumbest Republican that we have in Congress right now. But he was obviously speaking hyperbolically whenever he said he wanted to unalive Tucker Carlson. I doubt that he's going to actually show up to Tucker Carlson's house. I also thought it was funny that Tucker Carlson was like, oh yeah, why don't you just like come to my house? Here's my address. Well, like, what's Tucker Carlson gonna do if Dan Crenshaw actually did show up at his house? He would just call the cops. But it did sound personal. As he pointed out, they do have a sordid history with one another. They don't like one another. I also thought it was funny that the worst thing that Tucker Carlson could think to call someone like Dan Crenshaw was just John McCain, who is a celebrated Republican figure in that party. So maybe not the worst thing in the world, but I guess it upset Dan Crenshaw enough because he understood where that comment was coming from. And I don't blame him for not liking Tucker Carlson because I don't like him either. I don't want anything bad to happen to his physical body, but I wish he would get to just like kind of go away. That would be nice.
I would love to not have to hear about him much. Well, thankfully, I guess we don't nearly as much as we used to. So that's a little bit of an upgrade.
It is better, yeah.
But anyway, no, the Republicans do need to like get their S together because what kind of a party is this that you guys are running there? But anyway, fun for us to watch. And that is all the time we have to watch much of anything. We're at the end of our show. But Yaz, as always, thank you so much for being here. Everyone head over to Rebel HQ. You can see her work. 4 videos a week, which is a lot. And I know that you put a lot of time and attention and thought into them. So everyone should definitely check those out. Thank you, Yaz.
And I'll be back on Friday on TDR.
Yes, so Yaz is actually going to be leading on Friday. I'm going to be out of the area for another wedding, actually. It's the season of weddings. So Yaz is going to be leading the show. Jordan is going to be joining Yaz. They're going to be doing garbage people and everything. So I'm very excited to see it. Thank you for filling in, Yaz. I do appreciate it.
Of course, happy to do so.
Awesome, thank you. And everyone out there, more to come tomorrow. Sharon will be here for Big News Wednesday. For now, though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.